Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So we are from Home Group 2. So my name is Zadda Ilman, and I will be the presenter along with Edwina, Alyssa, and Syafrie Muhammad. And other members in my home group is Jonathan Chandra, Misal Alif, Chen Kongwei, and Muhammad Rafi Desrino. So basically, we're gonna talk about stunting in Indonesia, and yeah, we're gonna discuss more and dig deeper into it. And also later, we will know that stunting in Indonesia has reached a very severe level, and that's why, as youth, we feel triggered to solve this issue by giving recommendations that might be beneficial for governments or maybe other related stakeholders. Okay, here is the table of contents that we include in the presentation. So the first one is problem statement, and then hypothesis, solutions, supporting evidence, and recommendations and conclusions. Okay, now we go to problem. But before we jump further into the problem statement, better we know first what exactly stunting is. So according to World Health Organization, stunting is impaired growth and development that children experience from poor nutrition, repeated infection, and inadequate psychosocial stimulation. And here are the three facts stunting in Indonesia. So the first one is that stunting in Indonesia is very high, which has reached 27.67%, which is much higher than the standard one, which is only 20%. And the second one is that KPAI reported that 510 out of 516 cities, or I might say it's almost all cities in Indonesia, suffered this problem. And the third fact is that, according to World Bank Indonesia country director, nearly 9 million children in Indonesia uh, under 5 years old or balita are suffering this impaired growth. And that was actually main factor of stunting. In Indonesia itself, the main factor of stunting is poor nutritional intake from the time the fetus is in the womb until the children reach 2 years old. And the stunting is actually not just stunting. The stunting can actually give further impact, especially for children, which is started from brain damage, and then it can lead to disturbed intellectual in the future. And if it's so, if this problem is still exists or if the problem is still unsolved, then it really makes sense in the future the poverty will also still exist.
Okay, so now let's talk about the hypothesis of why stunting is happening. So after we found out critical information on stunting, we've formulated a hypothesis that stunting is a prominent issue, especially in developing nations like Indonesia, and it is caused by poor malnutrition and, of course, poor sanitation for both the babies and the mothers. And we also believe that stunting must be taken seriously by the government through strategic intervention. Now, let's head to the solutions. What we can do to alleviate stunting. First, we provide short-term solution for stunting that we think it might be suitable for Indonesia. So first is exclusive breastfeeding and adequate complementary feeding. So this is basically in Indonesia we call it program ASI exclusive, and it, it's given by the mothers to the babies for at least 2 years. And then we also must provide nutrition improvement program at school. So the local authorities can work with schools and distribute like multivitamins or even more nutritional food at a local school. And then to routinely monitor growth at Posyandu, because at the Posyandu we can get a lot of information, and there's a lot of people that can help us to monitor and measure growth correctly. And the last one is to provide a deworming program, because worm infestation in children, or especially babies in the early age, uh, have have been linked to a higher number of stunting because they hinder the ability of the babies to absorb more nutrients. And this is what we found might be suitable for the long-term solutions to alleviate stunting. The first one is to introduce ICT to rural areas. So we must teach people how to use technologies, and especially ICTs, starting from maybe using laptops and their phones for more productive use. For example, they can, if we teach them ICT, then they don't just consume entertainment, but they can use their laptop and their phones to gather information. One of it is on stunting. And actually now there's a lot of people that are sharing information on how to alleviate stunting on social media. So it would be a great advantage to rural people to know what stunting is and how to prevent it from the earliest to social media. And the second is to improve agriculture, and especially in Indonesia, we have to more diversify our food more. Currently, we are heavily reliant on rice as our main source of carbohydrate, and for that is for example. So we can diversify that even more, and by diversifying our food, we can get more variation and of course more nutrients. And there's also a solution that we found from the UNICEF's. And the first solution is to gather data that are central to planning and implementation. So basically, this is like what we have done here in Indonesia at the Posyandu, but on a bigger level, where we can employ innovative data collecting methods. So, or we can gather more data. Maybe we could create big data that measures the growth of children's, and then we can just put it on a database that we can access easily and that the government can access easily and can monitor which area has a high number of stunting and what to do to intervene on the area. And the second thing is to implement multi-sectoral and decentralized approaches, because currently the authority is responsible to prevent stunting or educate people on stunting is mainly focused on the Ministry of Health. So we think it's better to diversify that. So it's not just the rule of one ministry, but it's a collective rule, starting from the family itself and from the local authorities, and then extend vertically beyond that until it's actually become a national concern that must be solved. And the third is to encourage leaders to spearhead their efforts, because leaders currently think that stunting is just a family problem, and when actually it is actually it's a national problem, because stunting they can lead to people with a lower intellectual level, and they might have a low productivity when they grow up because they don't have enough ability to acquire a certain skill that might be suitable to the industry at that time. And the last is to improve dietary diversity and intervention of malnutrition program.
Hello, classmates and Pak Jimmy. I am Edwina Alyssa Matindas, and I will be conducting the last part of the presentation today, which will consist of the supporting evidence and the conclusion and recommendations. So World Health Organization has set a target for 40% reduction in the number of children under 5 who are stunted. They published some data around examples of intervention that was implemented to address children's stunting. This can be supporting evidence that the solutions that we recommended would have a positive impact on stunting. Firstly, Brazil experienced a sharp reduction of socioeconomic inequalities from 1996 to 2007. And with that, child stunting dropped from 37% to 7%. Two-thirds of the decline could be attributed to improvements in maternal schooling, family purchasing power, maternal and child health care, and coverage of water supply and sanitation services. More girls were enrolled in and completed primary school, increasing overall maternal schooling in adulthood. These women also had fewer children. Secondly, studies show that in Cambodia, prevalence of child stunting decreased from 49% to 39%. The factors that contributed the most to the decrease in child stunting were increased household wealth, increased access to sanitation facilities, improved maternal and paternal education levels, longer intervals between birth, and decreased prevalence of maternal tobacco use. And lastly, in Peru, stunting among children under 3 years of age fell from 54% to 37%. This was part of a program that promoted intake of iodized salt, prenatal controls, adequate feeding of pregnant and lactating women and their children, exclusive breastfeeding during the first 6 months of life, control of iron, vitamin deficiency, and personal and family hygiene. Lastly, I'll be talking about the conclusion and recommendations for stunting. For the conclusion itself, I will try to summarize all our key learnings so far on stunting. Firstly, the main cause are malnutrition from pregnancy to infancy for both the mother and children. Second, the main issue with stunting is that it disturbs the growth of infants, not allowing them to reach their full potential, and it has severe impact on the livelihoods and causing endless cycles of poverty. Thirdly, improvements that are needed, as mentioned by my teammate before, are first of all, proper healthcare and nutrition for all mothers and children. In addition, water, sanitation, and hygiene is also needed to ensure the children's proper development up until adulthood. So from our team, there are 3 major recommendations that I'll be explaining on the subject of stunting. Firstly, it's extensive socialization on stunting. The data points and evidence clearly shows that this is a major issue for our country, yet many people who need it the most are not properly educated about this topic. Second, the government needs to provide economic assistance to help poor families get adequate nutrition. The government can think of it as an investment to improve the country's development in the long run. And lastly, we need to encourage parents, especially mothers, to consult with nutritionists. It is critical that mothers are aware of the nutrition needs of their children. Without this, stunting will become an endless issue for Indonesia that will never get solved. So that's all for the presentation on PBL2 from our home group. On behalf of my team, I would like to say thank you for your attention, and any feedback and questions are welcome.